Good day, everyone. Welcome back to our lecture video series. This time we will focus on the voluntariness of human acts. So from the preceding topic or lesson, you have learned that voluntariness is one of the essential elements or constituent elements of human acts. Okay, a voluntariness is one of three main elements that constitute human acts. We have knowledge, freedom, and voluntariness. So this lesson focuses on voluntariness and the different degrees or types of voluntariness. So what are the different degrees of voluntariness? There are 5 categorizations. First, we have perfect and imperfect. There is simple and conditional. There is direct and indirect. There is positive and negative. And then there's actual, virtual, habitual, and interpretative. So let us deal with them one by one. First, perfect and imperfect voluntariness. So a perfect voluntariness is present in an act when the agent fully knows and fully intends the act. So we know again that knowledge is one of the essential elements of human acts. So when the knowledge and both knowledge and intention of the agent are fully present when the agent does something, then his action, that act has perfect voluntariness. Okay, for example, when you intend to study right now, when you decided to listen to this lecture video, your act of listening to this lecture video has perfect voluntariness because you know what you are doing and you fully intend to do it. Or other example would be intentionally telling a lie to your boyfriend. Imperfect voluntariness, on the other hand, is voluntariness that is present when there is some defect in the agent's knowledge, intention, or both. So when the knowledge of the agent and his intention, or both, are defective or in a sense impaired, then the act has imperfect voluntariness. So example, you add details in narrating an event or story that you do not fully know. Okay, so there is some defect there in your knowledge because in the first place you don't know the full story of what the event is all about. Then when narrating it to others, you add details to it which are not necessarily part of the whole story. So that act has imperfect voluntariness. Next, we have a simple and a conditional. So simple voluntariness is present in a human act done, whether the agent likes or dislikes doing it. Okay, example, washing the dishes after a family dinner. Okay, you may like doing that a thing or you may dislike it. But then in the very act of doing it, okay, that act has simple voluntariness by simply intending to do it. Conditional voluntariness is present when the agent wishes to do something other than that which he is actually doing, but doing with dislike. So for instance, you are washing the dishes, but at the same time you wish to watch a Netflix series. So in the very act of washing the dishes, you are disliking it, and then you are wishing to do something else, which is watching a Netflix series. So that act has a conditional voluntariness. Next, we have direct and indirect voluntariness. Direct voluntariness is simply present in a human act willed in itself. Okay, so an act which is willed directly in itself has direct voluntariness. On the other hand, Indirect voluntariness is present in that human act which is the foreseen result of another act directly willed. So sometimes there are acts that we directly intend or will to do. But then in doing that, in doing those things, there are other things that result from it or from them. So that foreseen result of another act which you directly will is an act which has indirect voluntariness. So a human act that is directly willed is called voluntary in se, while that which is indirectly willed is called voluntary in causa. So the voluntariness present in a human act which is willed in itself is called voluntariness in se, while the voluntariness present in an act indirectly willed is voluntariness in causa. So to illustrate, here's an example. Suppose you tell your best friend the truth about her boyfriend cheating on her. But in doing so, you would know that it would break her heart, it would hurt her feelings, and she will be sad. Now, the act of telling your best friend the truth, in this case, is voluntary in se. That means that act has direct voluntariness. But hurting her feelings, okay, which is a result of that act, is voluntary in causa. Meaning, you hurt her feelings indirectly. You hurt her feelings with an indirect intention of doing so. So that intention is voluntariness in causa. Okay, so later we will focus on the different issues or problems arising from indirect voluntariness. Next, we have positive and negative voluntariness. Positive voluntariness is present in a human act of doing or performing. Okay, so in the very act of doing something, or in the very act of performing something, then the act has positive voluntariness. Example, deciding to access Moodle to study lessons. Okay, so what you are doing right now is an act which has positive voluntariness. Negative voluntariness is present in a human act of omitting or refraining from doing. Example, deliberately missing classes. So take note, even when you choose not to do something, in a sense, you are still doing something else. Or rather, that act of choosing not to do something has negative voluntariness. Next, we have actual, virtual, habitual, and interpretative. Actual voluntariness is present in a human act willed here and now. Okay, so in the very moment of doing that thing, willing it here, in that very moment, in that specific point, then that act has actual voluntariness in the very act of doing it. Example, promising to love your spouse until death during marriage rites. So when you promise to love your spouse by saying I do, okay, saying I do's during marriage ceremonies is an act which has actual voluntariness. Virtual voluntariness is present in a human act done as a result of or in virtue of a formerly elicited actual intention, even if that intention be here and now forgotten. So for example, you made a promise to love your spouse during marriage rite. As years passed by, you have forgotten that listed actual intention, but then you continue to do acts which are a result of that formerly elicited actual intention, like staying faithful to your spouse by caring for her or him throughout the married life. So those acts of caring for him or her those acts have virtual voluntariness. Okay, because they are done as results or in virtue of the formerly elicited actual intention of promising to love your spouse. Okay. Next, habitual voluntariness. This is present in a human act done in harmony with, but not as a result of, a formerly elicited and unrevoked actual intention. Okay, so that means you, at some point, you made an intention, but as time passes, you have not fully realized that intention, but then you neither rejected or revoked such intention, but you have done something which is in agreement or in harmony with that formerly elicited and unrevoked intention. Although it is not a result of it, it is done still in harmony with it. So example, at age 18, you make an intention to be baptized in the Catholic religion. Years passed and you did not fulfill it, nor did you revoke it. One day you became seriously ill, fighting for your life. Now a priest came over and baptized you in your unconscious state. So let us say you are in a coma. Now the act of receiving baptism is in agreement with the actual intention once made and unrevoked. In this case, you then possess habitual voluntariness for the act of receiving baptism, the sacrament of baptism, in your unconscious state. Okay, so take note, before you made an actual intention to be baptized, but you did not realize it, nor did you revoke it. Something happened, now you are in your unconscious state, and now you are receiving sacrament of baptism. Okay, now that act of receiving it has habitual voluntariness. Okay, although it is done not as a result of your formerly elicited intention, it is still done in harmony with it. Next, interpretative voluntariness. This is voluntariness which would have been present if, in the judgment of prudence and common sense, opportunity or ability for it were given. Example, a small boy who has to be literally carried to school and kept there against his will, because the boy hates going to school, has an interpretative intention of going to school. For adults, the boy's parents and teachers know that if the boy could but realize the value of schooling or education, if he could have just used his common sense, and if he could have just judged according to prudence, then he would certainly will to attend school. Okay, so in this case, the boy's act has an interpretative voluntariness. Okay, so those are the different degrees or types of voluntariness. Now we tackle the issues on indirect voluntariness. Again, indirect voluntariness is also called voluntariness in causa. It is present in that human act which is an effect, foreseen or foreseeable, of another act directly willed. Again, you intend to do something, but doing it results to another thing, which you already foresee. So that foreseen act has indirect voluntariness. Now, when we bring together indirect voluntariness and imputability, there are two ethical questions or problems that arise. Again, imputability is the quality of human acts that make them ascribable or attributable to moral agents. Meaning to say, the agent is blamable, or he can be praised for doing such acts, because such acts stem from his knowledge and free will. That is what we mean by imputability. Now, suppose you do something, you intend to do something, you will it directly, but in doing so, there results another a thing which is not necessarily good, but something bad. Now, it may be that in doing such thing, your intention is good, but then there is this inevitable bad result or evil result. So in that case, the evil result of your act has indirect voluntariness. Okay, so again, two ethical problems arise from this. First, when is the agent responsible for the evil effect of a cause directly willed? When can we say that the agent has the moral responsibility for the evil effect, which is an indirect, which is indirectly willed, and such evil effect is the result of the original act which the agent directly willed? Okay. Can we say that he is responsible for that evil effect? And if he is so, what makes him responsible? So this is answered by the principle of indirect voluntariness. There are three conditions. First, the agent must be able to foresee the evil effect at least in a general way. So because the moral agent must possess knowledge in order to perform a human act, then the agent must be able to foresee the results of his action, including the evil effect which he indirectly wills. So when that is present, okay, that constitutes one of the conditions for the agent's responsibility. Second, the agent must be free to refrain from doing that which is the cause of the evil effect. So even before doing such thing, the agent has choices, or he is presented with options. Okay, he can choose to do it or not to do it. So when there are options available, that's another condition that takes part of his moral responsibility for doing such act. Thirdly, the agent must be morally bound not to do that which is the cause of the evil effect. Meaning to say, the agent must have the moral duty not to do something which causes something evil. So when these three conditions occur, then the agent is morally responsible for the evil effect indirectly willed, an effect which is a result of another act directly willed. Again, this is the principle of indirect voluntariness. Second problem. When may one perform an act, although not evil in itself, which has two effects, one good and another one evil? So can we permit someone to do something, although it is not evil, but it has two effects, good and evil? Yes, in most cases, these kinds of acts occur in certain kinds of moral dilemmas. So can we allow such acts? And if we can allow them, what principles tell us that they are permissible? So this is answered by the principle of double effect. First, the evil effect must not precede the good effect. This means that the evil effect must not come before the good effect so as to be a means to attain it. So the agent must not use the evil effect as a means to achieve the good effect. Okay, the evil effect must come last, and the good effect must come first. Otherwise, the act is impermissible. Second, there must be a reason sufficiently grave calling for the act in its good effect. This means that there must exist a reason proportionately grave or weighty which calls for the good effect. In other words, there must be a very serious, grave reason which is sufficient enough for the agent to do the action in view of its good effect. So the good effect must weigh more. It must have there must be a grave reason that compels the agent to do it. Thirdly, the intention of the agent must be honest. Essentially, the agent must directly or exclusively intend the good effect and merely permit the evil effect as a regrettable incident. So because the agent has a knowledge and therefore he is able to foresee the evil effect, which is an outcome of the act he directly wills, the agent must only permit that to inevitably happen. Okay? And the intention of the agent must be exclusively the good effect. In other words, he must only indirectly intend the evil effect and directly intend the good effect. So when these three conditions occur, then an act which has two effects, good and evil, is permissible. Again, that is the principle of double effect. One particular case that illustrates or shows a case of indirect voluntariness is the trolley problem. So the trolley problem is a kind of hypothetical problem formulated by the philosopher Philippa Foot in 1967. So the problem goes like this. Imagine seeing a trolley or a train going fast on a certain direction. So it runs on this track. Then you see 5 people on this track. They're tied to the tracks and then there's no way for them to escape. Now if the trolley goes this way, then it will hit these 5 people and they will die. Now you are standing next to a switch which allows the tracks to switch and then allowing the trolley to go a different direction. But then if you pull the switch, the trolley will go this way, but here you also see one person tied on the tracks. So if you pull the switch, you would be saving these 5 people, but you would also be allowing the death of this one person here. Okay, so this is one action that leads to two consequences, one good and one bad. So there are 2 effects. Now the action, again, the act in question is the act of pulling the switch. So in this case, the same problem is raised. Can we allow such act? Okay, although it is not evil in itself, it has 2 effects, one good and one bad. Now to determine the permissibility of these kinds of acts, we have to apply the 3 conditions set by the principle of double effect. First, the evil effect must not come before the good effect, so as to be a means to attain the good effect. So in this case, the act of pulling the switch, again that is the act in question, would allow the trolley to go this other direction, saving these 5 people and allowing the death of this one person. Now the evil effect here is the death of this one person, while the good effect is that these 5 people will be saved. Now by pulling the switch, actually you are not using as a means to attain the good effect the death of this one person. So by pulling the switch, you save these 5 people first before allowing this other person to die. Second, there must be a reason sufficiently grave calling for the act in its good effect. So if you try to weigh the consequences, actually, okay, there must be a grave reason for you to to pull the switch in order to save 5 lives compared to allowing only the death of 1 person. So there is a very weighty reason why you should perform such act. And lastly, the last condition is the intention of the agent must be honest. Meaning to say, the agent must exclusively intend the good effect and only allow the evil effect to happen as a regrettable incident. So in this case, actually, by pulling the switch, your intention is to save these 5 people. Okay? That is actually your main intention by doing such thing. And then you only permit that this other person will die. In other words, you directly will to save these 5 people, and you indirectly will the death of this other person.
So that is the principle of double effect. Basically, it tries to address the problem on the permissibility of an act, although not evil, but has 2 effects, one good and the other one evil. So as a conclusion to this topic, we therefore made a deduce from those following 2 principles these following statements, and this will help us inform us before we do anything, any particular action in our practical lives. First, we must do good and we must avoid evil. Secondly, we must never do what is evil, even though good may be looked for and intended as a result of it.